So before I sit down, I know a lot of you folks don't understand how much work this is. I'm actually going to sit down here in a second and check out that sunset. Look at that sunset. I forgot my tripod. You know, all this video stuff's a pain in the ass. But if you want to grow a homestead, small farm or estate, you're going to have to do some of this stuff. You're going to have to get out and work on this stuff to get it done. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I'm a volunteer over here at the Sustainable Homestead Institute. Look it up on the internet and you'll find demonstration gardens, wildflowers, bulbed flowers. There's the location from my small fruits video. And I'm just giving you excerpts of what's going on here, because if I sat down and did a video of all the work that needs to be done, and my holy hat, look at that. If I gave you a video of all the work that needs to be done, well, that's even worse. Anyway, if I gave you a video of all the work that needs to be done, it would be very discouraging. The truth of it is that growing a farm or having a homestead that provides all your food is actually a little bit more work than you might expect. And in fact, it can be hours and hours of work, especially in the beginning. This bed right here took, and all this tillage and getting these permanent raised beds, you can see the permanent raised beds, took a week to do. Now, once it's done, I never have to do it again. But we found that I probably should put a trail down here because we have water coming down that hill there. There's a reason I'm sharing this with you, and I want you to hang in there. I want you to pay close attention. All of this work is based on permaculture design principles and organic farming. So there's no chemical fertilizer here, no herbicides, no pesticides. Essentially, for example, all these little stakes that's sticking up here, they're actually right there. They're actually, birds land on them, and then the birds predate on the insects that are out here. Some of the field here grows such a high density that we don't really care if there's any bugs or insects, because there's more food than there are pests. So there's no need to spray fertilizer. Now, we also have what we call no-till beds, and then we also have, actually at my house, there's the demonstration for the no-till grass-fed beds. Here, these are permanent raised beds that receive a minor amount of tillage, because originally we were going to no-till them, but spreading mulch on top of all this and grass on top of this was not as beneficial as having the cover crops in place. See, the cover crops add nutrients to the soil. They add biomass to the soil. They help us keep that soil in place. Layering new material on top works really well. However, it just, you're covering a lot of area here. So you'd have to bring in like 15 round bales, a huge pile of straw. So again, rather than bringing in the straw, we're going to grow it here. So what am I getting at here? Okay, what I'm saying is that you start at any level you're already at. Start where you are today. If all you have space for is a 4x4 square foot garden, then start there. Oh, we're gonna get over on the other side here, get a better view of the sun going down. But again, you got to start where you're at, because you may not be interested in this. I find this therapeutic, coming out here and digging and moving compost, but at the end of the day, I'm worn out, and it's energy draining until you see that harvest. We see that harvest. It's just the most exciting thing. What we got going on here is more beds. Now, the top beds up here are for vegetables, and the bottom beds down there for biomass or for corn and other things like that, bulk items. You can see what I was working on there earlier. There's the compost. If you start small rather than big. See, I know a lot of people are dreaming about these giant homesteads and these, they want this immaculate farm. They want their estate house overlooking beautiful gardens. If you start with a 4x4 bed, in fact, see these beds behind me? These raised beds, perfect to get started. You don't need a greenhouse. You see there's another one over there. You don't need, you don't need slaves to do the work for you. You don't need to buy a tractor. See, a lot of folks don't understand that a typical farmer is $200,000 in on equipment before the first cut of grass is done. So you talk about hay fields and things like that. The equipment to run a hay field is quite tremendous. And they got to put calcium and fertilizer on it every year. You just can't. You could spread pig manure and liquid waste and stuff on it, but most farms they're gonna do minimal treatments to the grasses because it really costs a lot to get that hay bale out of the field. So I hear folks talking about they're gonna do a hay bale garden. Okay, that's great, it works. If that's where you're starting, that's great. But if you're paying $5 a bale this year and $10 a bale next year, you can't keep gardening like that. So the key thing that works really well here that we continue to do over and over again is building soil. So whether this is a little corner garden, 12 foot by 12 foot, or it's this 2-acre enclosure that we've got right here, the soil is more important than the plants that you plant. Okay, now listen carefully, this is important. If you've got soil with worms in it, you've got soil with nutrients and micronutrients, all that stuff, it'll be available for the plants if the soil conditions are right, because again, you need the worms to eat the soil, and then to make things bioavailable to the plants, you need mycelium and that kind of stuff. If you manage the water, you can see it by this trail here. See, there's like a trail here. Whoa, why is there a trail in the garden? Oh, because this is a contour swale, tiny little contour swale, and it's actually spreading the water out, and because the water soaks there, it tends to kill the grass. See, I planned, I had a tripod, and I had, just not prepared, but that's okay. I'm going to get ready to chill here and watch the sunset. But we got this trail here. It gives us access, and it spreads the nutrients out. So let's say I'm moving this manure over here, okay? And I don't have time to throw it out on the beds. That's okay. I could just lay it in this trail, in this path, and every time it rains, the water would soak in the nutrients. Now, to be a muddy mess, you don't want to really do that. If I was gonna dump compost in the trail here or anything, I'd be better off using dumping it out and then using a shovel just to flick it into the beds. Now, these raised beds, okay, some unique designs about this. Here, see this edge right here where my foot is? You like my fancy outfit, don't you? Anyway, this outer edge here is going to compact. Got a compact, and we can actually even walk on the top here. So you see where we are right here? All the way down the edge. And that actually provides an embankment in the soil so that when the rain comes, it spreads out in the ditch, and then it flows down, soaks into the ground, which is the garden bed. If we have cover crops in place, if we have biomass and bulk plants in our idle beds, if we throw out our compost, our manures, all of that stays on the ground here. So there's an ecological presentation. So if you start small, you're going to start getting some experience in these things. A little square foot garden can grow a lot of vegetables. If you're going to expand, why not go out and volunteer and work someplace to get the experience? When I first got into this, my biggest garden was 40 foot by 40 foot. I've managed and worked on a 1/4 acre garden at a household, but ultimately, I usually had I had like 125 foot of beds, double reach beds. This is different, okay? I've learned things out here that I would not have gotten otherwise. It would have gotten me in trouble if I'd have just gone out and done this. Now, if this was a perfectly flat piece of land, it's easier, but you're not always going to get perfectly flat pieces of land. I like to do the terracing and the kind of like a duct system where you have terraced beds and you have nice edges, little berms. You can flood beds if you need to. I like to use that method. It works great here. But there are areas here where the terraces would be so wide, it wouldn't really be worth making them shorter because the ground is level enough. So up here at the top of the hill, we have raised bed mounds. You can see how it's kind of terraced on there. Over time, they may get wider as more materials put in. They may get taller, but ultimately, you've got to work with the land that you've got. So if you're already in a place and you could set up a square foot garden, go ahead and do it. Get started. If you can volunteer at a local community garden, that's even better. If your church, social group or fraternity, or even community center wanted to do a community garden, that's even better because there'll be many people to work. There are times that I'm out here by myself. There's times I'm out here with 4 or 5 people. It just really depends on what's going on. But ultimately, it's better together. So a community garden's a good idea. Again, I see too many people going on Reddit and they post on Reddit, you know, what, I got this piece of land, what do I do with it? They've already bought the land and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. That's not the right way to go. Start by volunteering on someone's farm. Start in a community garden. Start in your own yard. Start somewhere. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. It's important you understand that this requires some work. It's extremely rewarding. Visit my website at www.prosperityhomestead.org to ask your questions. And I'd love to introduce to you to some places you can volunteer around here in the Martinsville, Henry County area, and opportunities that you can start on your permaculture journey. Thanks for watching.